I saw when the Bitcoin law came into effect, I saw that as a first sign of that things were changing and changing for the first time in 23 years. 2019, El Salvador, insecure, dangerous. Not many people wanted to come back. 2024, El Salvador, more people are coming back every day. Bitcoin is illegal tender currency. The country is sick. So it's been a really, really big paradigm shift. In El Salvador, say 70% of the country doesn't have a bank account. It's like the Trojan horse. They're not going to be able to stop it.
You're seeing more businesses move from not only accepting Bitcoin, but also holding the Bitcoin and not converting it directly to fiat, which is extremely great to see.
They're buying every single day. The experience paying with via Lightning is above and beyond any other experience paying with any other method.
Then moved out and came back, or how was it?
Yeah, so I lived in El Salvador my whole life up until high school. After I finished high school, I went to study abroad in Boston. I graduated, worked in energy a little bit, but was a Bitcoiner since like 2016, 2017. Then basically I went to like the Bitcoin conference in Miami and just to see, right? And then at the end of the conference, Bukele all of a sudden comes out and says like, "Oh, Bitcoin is now legal tender." What just happened, right? That was a huge shock. I never thought it was ever gonna happen in El Salvador, or that I was gonna end up coming back. But I'm glad I came back. I was able to come back to do something that I liked, right? It's not often in third world countries, at least, that you can say that something is going on for the first time over there. That isn't happening anywhere else.
So did Bitcoin made you come back, or was it the policies that Naib Bukele implemented?
So at first it was Bitcoin. I saw when the Bitcoin law came into effect, I saw that as a first sign of things were changing. And changing for the first time in 23 years that I was a Salvadoran up until the time. So I saw that as a positive sign. And after that, the policies that Bukele has been implementing in those same 23 years, I've never felt safer than I have like up until now. Before, throughout my whole time that I lived in El Salvador, couldn't go to the beaches. You couldn't go to small towns and cities around. You'd be scared, like if it was a night that you get robbed or assaulted or something. So I would say it was a combination of both. Because when I came back, El Salvador was still a little bit dangerous, and that changed, you know. So.
Interesting. Maybe let's paint a little bit of a picture for people that didn't knew El Salvador before, and also maybe they weren't there till now. How different is El Salvador 2019 versus El Salvador now, 2024, almost 2025?
So for example, before, El Salvador was a place that was recognized by its violence. I would tell anyone I knew, "Hey, you want to come back to El Salvador with me?" Like my friends in college, and they'd be like, "Oh, my parents don't let me." Right? It's a dangerous country. They asked me if I had bodyguards. I didn't, and stuff like that. And so there was a whole perspective. It was a completely different perspective abroad. And even for myself, I never thought I was ever going to come back. I didn't want to come back to El Salvador. The whole purpose of going to like an American school here was to study abroad, keep on living abroad, because unless you had like a family business, there really wasn't many reasons to come back, you know. But I think all of that was due to the insecurity. So 2019 El Salvador, insecure, dangerous. Not many people wanted to come back. 2024 El Salvador, more people are coming back every day. Bitcoin is illegal tender currency. The country is safe. You know? So it's been a really, really big paradigm shift. And now my friends that were telling me, "Oh, my parents don't let me come." They're asking me, "Oh, when can I go visit?"
Interesting. Yeah, I was in El Salvador not even a month ago, and it was really nice. Like I didn't felt any danger at all while I was there. It felt really secure. It was always nice. People treated you good. So there was not even any aggression. There was not any. They were very open to me. They were very welcoming to me. So it's a nice country now. Obviously, I never visited before that. It was my first time ever in El Salvador. But yeah, right now it's a good country to at least visit.
To your point that people nowadays are more open, that's something I've noticed as well. Before, like my time in high school here, you'd go up and talk with someone, like a random person you didn't know on the street or someone else, and they'd respond like in a little bit of a sort of defensive way because they didn't know who you were, and I didn't know who they were. So it was like a little bit of with the not conflict, but like tension, I'd say, in pretty no average conversations, just because the country was so insecure. But nowadays, as you were saying, like you can talk with anyone, and it's all super super chill. I know nowadays nobody is gonna wants to harm me, and people know that I don't want to harm anyone either. So I think that's allowed for more openness amongst the country, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And what are you now doing in El Salvador?
So I work at IBEX. We're a Bitcoin Lightning Network company, and we also provide liquidity to Bitcoin and digital asset companies in El Salvador and in Guatemala. So I'm the regional manager for Central America for the operations.
On regional manager, I always have to think about The Office and Michael Scott.
On the what?
Oh, you
What?
don't know about The Office?
Oh yeah, The Office. Yeah. Yeah, I'm
And
the Michael Scott.
yeah, and Michael Scott is the regional manager. I watched that episode, that series too much, and every time someone says regional manager, I just it comes up in my brain. Really cool. So you try to help get Lightning and get mean of exchange, basically the currency use of Bitcoin in El Salvador better. How has it actually been in El Salvador to use Lightning, to use Bitcoin as payments?
So we started in El Salvador in 2021. We actually already had plans to expand to El Salvador before the Bitcoin law was announced. So we were already in the process of opening up the company, and we were, I think, the second company to get the Bitcoin license after Chivo. And we started off with a payment processor called IBEX Pay. So the first thing we realized was, okay, everybody will get $30 of Bitcoin, and no business has any way of accepting. There isn't a payment processor. And since Lightning back then was it was already in development, but it was kind of a new technology. No big companies had it integrated before. So we developed our own POS solution, set up a cluster of nodes for the Lightning infrastructure, and created IBEX Pay. However, we knew that businesses in El Salvador, many of them wouldn't want to keep Bitcoin, at least not yet. And they would want instant conversion to dollars. So we put that in together with the Lightning payment processor, and we were helping businesses like Starbucks, Wendy's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Subway, Omnisport, Crown Plaza, Holiday Inn, take all of their Bitcoin, be able to accept payments with Bitcoin over the Lightning Network with instant convertibility to US dollars in their local.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How deep is Bitcoin already used as a currency in El Salvador?
I would say every year on year we've seen like 10% year on year growth, at least on transactions coming into IBEX Pay. We have some part of the market. However, there's a lot of other platforms out there which we don't have numbers for, but I can tell you it's increasing every month, the use of it as a currency. Um, so I think something that's changed nowadays is that you can use the Lightning as a payment rail for a fintech company or for a wallet. So, for example, you can be using Lightning to move value between point A and point B without knowing you're using Bitcoin or going through Lightning. I think that's what's needed for adoption to become greater, right? For example, there's wallets where you can have like a balance in dollars, like Strike, for example, or Dito banks, and you can use when a Lightning payment shows up, you can scan it and it debits from the dollar balance, sends it and pays it, and the user never knew he was using Lightning or that I went for Bitcoin and stuff like that. Because, for example, in El Salvador, say 70% of the country doesn't have a bank account, and 70% of the country, I would say more or less, makes the minimum wage, which is around 350 a month. So many of them don't have the capacity to, for example, save in Bitcoin. But if you give them access to a wallet, digital transaction method, which is using Bitcoin, but they have it dollarized, they will most likely start using it.
Okay, interesting. And I think that's really important to have to integrate Bitcoin as deep as possible, also with the fiat currencies right now, to have that hybrid system where people can just choose what they use, and it's not a difference for them if they have dollars or Bitcoin, and they can just see what fits best. And I think if we have a flexible system that incorporates the fiat system for now, it's really good to push Bitcoin in there and have a better and stronger ecosystem down the road. And then once we're ready, we can get rid of the fiat system, hopefully.
Yeah, it's like the Trojan horse, right? Yeah, they're not going to be able to stop it eventually. But one thing I can tell you that I've seen is businesses before they wanted to keep dollars at the start, but over the last 3 years, I've been getting calls from clients that tell me, hey, like I want to keep it all in Bitcoin. You know, the price does help a lot in making that paradigm shift. And besides the transactional aspect, so we actually, for example, for the payment processor, we charge less if they keep it in Bitcoin. As an incentive for them to keep it in Bitcoin. And I try to push them to keep it in Bitcoin. So besides the transactional part of our business, where we make commissions from each transaction, we want our clients to keep Bitcoin. We want them to have self-custody of their funds. A lot of what we do here in El Salvador are real estate transactions for Bitcoiners that are coming in to buy property and stuff like that. The seller usually says, "Oh, I want to keep all of it in dollars." Classic. So, for example, there's a property that we sold recently where it took 1 year. The payments were made throughout a year, and at the start of the year, I told them, "Well, we gave them a free Trezor just for the transactional purposes, so they could see the Bitcoin coming in, so they could verify it on the blockchain. If they wanted to convert it, they would send it to us." And they said, I'm going to convert all of it. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but you're going to have your own wallet. So anyways, throughout the year, over the last, let's say 2 months ago, they told me, hey, I actually want to keep part of this payment in Bitcoin. It was a substantial payment. And I was very happy. You know, I didn't charge anything for that, but they kept it in Bitcoin. And now it's appreciated more than having all of that. I mean, they made in the last month what they would have made with all the other funds sitting in the bank for a whole year. You know, and I think that's how people are going to start getting it and talking amongst themselves and things like that. And for businesses, For example, we have clients in their payment processor and have kept Bitcoin, just Bitcoin since the start, right? But since it didn't represent a meaningful part of their operations that they needed to pay with dollars or cash, they just kept it in Bitcoin. Nowadays, they've done between 5 to 7x profits in, like, that's how much their financials have improved just keeping it in Bitcoin by now, you know? So, yeah.
Absolutely interesting. So you're seeing more businesses move from not only accepting Bitcoin but also holding the Bitcoin and not converting it directly to fiat, which is extremely great to see that they are incentivized to do that. And I think in general, getting paid in Bitcoin is something magical, especially if you live in El Salvador, where there are no capital gains tax and you can just use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
Yeah. So here that's a big benefit. For example, if Bitcoin goes up in value, no capital gains. So that's excellent. Um, since it's legal tender currency locally, you could argue there's other benefits, tax-wise and stuff like that, like for buying property. But yeah, getting paid in Bitcoin here is when there's no capital gains is excellent. I mean, you get tax capital gains on any other sort of investment you do, except Bitcoin, right? So that's already a 10% savings on whatever you make. Um, and that's something that I tell businesses, look, sometimes it's really big companies that are going to receive one payment of like 10K, for example. It doesn't represent much to them. And I tell them, look, like, keep it in Bitcoin as a treasury strategy, keep it for more than 1 year, etc. And they didn't listen before, but now they're calling me and say, hey, like actually want to open a wallet. What can I do? I'm happy to help, of course. But I think it takes, for example, it's very easy to overestimate what can happen in 3 years and underestimate what can happen in 10. I think that's something that's been one of the most important lessons here. Because publicly, like around the world, everybody's been saying, like news outlets come out with news saying, "Oh, Salvador's Bitcoin experiment failed," and it's like, no, this is gonna take some time. Things don't happen from the day to the night. And now I think we're starting to see the first, with all these companies that want to keep Bitcoin, we're starting to see the first results of that. And also, El Salvador's Bitcoin portfolio is up 120%. That's, for a third world country, that is incredible. I mean, it's outperformed any other type of investment.
Absolutely, it's interesting. It's also it's very true what you say. Most people completely overestimate what can happen in the short term, like 1, 2, 3 years, and they underestimate what can happen in like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now on, because it's just such a high time. Like, just go back 15 years, Bitcoin wasn't even there. And now we have countries adopting it. So fast forward another 15, 20 years, it will be interesting where we end up. Where do you see El Salvador as a country developing in 5, 10 years?
So, for example, Bitcoin-wise, I think it will be a great example to neighboring countries and other third world developing nations what can be achieved by adopting a Bitcoin treasury strategy, and also being so. For example, here all Bitcoin companies are regulated, and digital asset companies, so anything that's not Bitcoin, are also regulated, which is going to come eventually to all countries, right? Every country is going to start overseeing regulating Bitcoin companies. So I think we already have a big head start here as to what a tropicalized regulation will look like. As to 5 years in advance, Bitcoin does what it's supposed to do. El Salvador, I think, could be looking completely very different than it is today in a positive sense, even better, right? Bitcoin itself is an economic, and has proven to be an economic miracle for the country already. in 2.5 years that we've been buying Bitcoin. It's 3 years actually. And I think if you give it twice that amount of time, it can definitely do something like that.
How big of a factor is Naib Bukele in El Salvador for that future growth?
I would say, for example, he's going to be a big influence in that. So to give a little context, before used to be two parties, a left-wing party and a right-wing party, and it was basically 50-50, like that. Each of them had 20 years in power over the last 40 years. All of them stole a ton of money, and never did anything different. They just wanted to be in power, right? And ever since Bukele came into power, the country has undergone a paradigm shift economic, a paradigm shift in PR. So people don't look at El Salvador the way they used to before. We have, I would say, respect, and not even I can talk about El Salvador, but also I now feel prouder to be a Salvadoran. People come up to me and ask me about El Salvador, and that's when you make somebody feel important or empowered, that also brings everyone else up. So I want to do good things for El Salvador now, right? I've always wanted to, but I want to do it more now than before, right? And so going back to the political part, Bukele has done an excellent job making the country secure, implementing Bitcoin. He's also going to be bringing in nuclear, of which I'm a big advocate for. And all of these things I never thought were going to happen, but it's what you need to really change a country for the better.
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece, and make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure, it's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty.
And from what I understand, he cannot be re-elected in 2029, or is that something that he could change and he could be re-elected of the end of his period?
So in a Tucker Carlson interview that he was in, he said that he wasn't going to run for president again. But I still think, for example, there's a lot of relevant influence he's going to have. Even if he's not, even if he doesn't run, for example, he's still going to have a very relevant influence. and I'm sure whoever he runs, like for his party, is going to do an excellent job, But he can also not be president and be an advisor. There's no laws against like being an advisor, for example. So I think that's gonna continue. And some people think that he's gonna become like the mayor of Bitcoin City or something like that. That would be awesome. But yeah, and just to also on the political side of things, for example, let's say uncles of mine that are 70 years old were of the right wing party, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is bad." Whatever. They told me that Bitcoin exists because of the Sinaloa cartel, and it's like you work with a cartel. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Right. So they don't like Bitcoin. They don't like Bukele because it's simply a completely different age. I asked him like, what did you think about the internet when it came out? He's like, I don't know. And the conversation finished. But yeah.
That's super interesting. It's also interesting because usually in the more right-leaning political landscape, Bitcoin is more accepted than in the left-leaning there. So just for me to understand is like there are two big parties in El Salvador, and Naib Bukele is his own party, or like how does this work?
Sorry, I forgot to say that. So both parties left and the right word. So after they were in power, both, Bukele made his own party. Bukele was actually, I think, he spent some time in either of the parties, but it never worked out because there were 70-year-olds telling him, like, no, you can't do that, or you're too young, or whatever. After a while of that, you need to do something different if you want things to change, and that's what he did. He created his own party, Nuevas Ideas, and got the support, won the election by like landslide, and yeah.
Interesting. So he actually created his own party and won the election. That's huge. That's something that's unthinkable in America right now.
Yeah.
But the initial position was similar to what it's now in America, where there's two big parties and a bunch of small ones, but they don't really matter.
Yeah, it was exactly like that. I think people like for that to happen, people need to be fed up with both. That's I think probably that's what happened here. People were fed up. If you look at our history of presidents, every single one of them has been like has stolen a ton of money or in jail. That's been our history for too long.
Interesting. I also heard that his brother might take over.
I hadn't heard that before.
I heard a lot of interesting theories around Naib Bukele. It's super interesting because like Max Kaiser, for example, runs around with Naib Bukele 2029 with this cap of like he will run again. Then I heard Naib Bukele might switch over to a higher level of like trying to work together in Central America between more countries. That was an interesting thing. And the other thing that I heard is that his brother is taking over. I have no clue what if that's just a theory or if there's anything to it. But it seems like he's extremely popular, and it seems like he can do even more in 5 years with El Salvador or with Central America, maybe on a bigger scale. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He's extremely popular, and I go to Guatemala a lot. My brother lives over there. In my two beautiful nieces, and whenever I go to Guatemala, I get in an Uber, and they ask me, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'm from El Salvador. Oh, Naib Bukele, he's awesome. Like, we want him to come over here. I've had that happen to me like 10 times already. in Guatemala, just randomly. Every time I say I'm from El Salvador, oh, Naib Bukele, like we need him over here. Guatemala is a whole different monster. A lot of corruption, like 25 different political parties, complicated. But people are never happy with any of the governments they ever pick. And the same in Honduras, the same in Nicaragua. Well, Nicaragua is a dictatorship. But yeah, it's the so I think he said the same as he did in El Salvador. Like people everywhere around Central America are fed up, right? They're fed up on their governments, and they need something new to come in. I think there's even been he's opened parties in a couple of other like in those surrounding countries, but nothing has come out publicly yet. But I think he's mentioned before a couple of times on Central America coming together. Actually, used to be all of Central America used to be a single country, and then we all separated. But we're all right next to each other. We're fairly small compared to the rest of other countries, but together we could be a huge powerhouse, right? Having access to both oceans. You can make a canal in Nicaragua, for example. You also have trade with Mexico. You're literally between North and South America in land. But nowadays, to cross that strait, you need to go through like 3 or 4 different countries, or 5 different countries actually, and it just makes things more expensive and inefficient, right? So I think unifying Central America would be really, really, really cool. It's the Yeah. There's also a meme that came out like when Bitcoin got to 90K. It's like it said like it was Bukele. He's like, oh, I'm going to buy Guatemala, right? Yeah,
He might does it. I don't
yeah.
know if you can buy
If
it, but yeah.
So if Bitcoin gets to 3 million, it's the like he's gonna have more cash than there is in the central bank of Guatemala in dollars, for example.
Wow.
But yeah.
And probably sooner because he still buys Bitcoin, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. They're buying every single day. I think the wallet is public. You can see how the Bitcoin comes in, how it stacks, and everything.
Super interesting. I think like a union around Central America, a United States of Central America. I don't know how to call it, but it could be really a good step for Central America to come together and work together and unify under one umbrella. But yeah, I don't know. I've no insights in the politics of Central America, so I don't really know if it does make sense. But yeah, it's just a bunch of smaller countries that would have a bigger force on the world if they are centralizing. But yeah. Let's see what happens. Would be an interesting move of Naib Bukele moving up one level and being like the one that is unifying Central America.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hopefully that ends up happening. And I think besides Bitcoin, like Bukele is the one that's made like Bitcoin happen. I think he can make a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Definitely not only in El Salvador, but in the region. There's even been times where like a road in Guatemala has had like potholes and stuff like that near El Salvador's border, but the Guatemalan authorities won't go up and fix it. So Bukele sent like people from here to go to cross to Guatemala and fix the road on their side. You know, so he's starting to do little things like that, helping Costa Rica recently too. Costa Rica's been having increased violence, for example, and they also had torrential rains I think like 4 weeks ago. So Bukele's been sending aid like for generals and everything to meet with the generals over there, and also helping out with food and rations for those affected by the rains. So he's starting to do these little kind of things all around the region. Yeah.
Really, really cool. It's also something that I recently thought about is like if you go to Germany or any other country or most other countries, and you asked, oh, how do you think about your chancellor? How do you think about your president? How do you think about the leader in the country? However he's named, and they mostly would say like, oh, like he's not that good. We don't like him. He should be out of office, and that probably would be the more positive ones. The more negative ones would be even harder than that. And if you go to El Salvador, and I did that, I was in El Salvador, asked all the Uber drivers, the waitress, and the waiters in the restaurants, and asked them, hey, how do you like Naib Bukele? How do you like Bitcoin? And they all love Naib Bukele. Like I didn't met anyone that didn't were extremely positive towards Naib Bukele. So it's just a sense of he's actually popular, and he's actually doing something positive for El Salvador, and the population is noticing exactly that. That's what I have seen.
And it's important that you mentioned that because Bukele always says like come and see it with your own eyes, right? You come and see it with your own eyes. That's, I mean, you see it. Not much going around it. And on the Bitcoin part, even though, for example, not much of say 70% of the unbanked people not use it, for example, or have exposure to it, but it's a socialized topic now. Every single person in El Salvador knows about Bitcoin, knows what it is. You can go to other neighboring countries, none of them will know. Well, many of them may not know what it is or ever have heard of it. But now in El Salvador, it's so popular, so people might have people know a little bit, bits and pieces about it, right? Maybe not the full picture, but they have some sort of opinion about it. It can be either good or bad, but it's in their heads already. So it's very highly socialized topic now. And I think the only thing that's missing is, for example, more education on the subject, and people will slowly start learning more.
Very true. 100% agree with that. Another topic with you, because you have been in America and in El Salvador. How do you look at American politics right now? How do you look at what they are trying to do with probably trying to do with the strategic reserve bill? And is this kind of the El Salvador was the small nation tipping the toe in and moving into Bitcoin, and now all of a sudden the big whale America is coming. How do you look at what they are trying to do?
So I was talking about this with a friend a couple of days ago, and for example, it's good for Bitcoin that the US has it. It's going to become more that means it's going to become more relevant. I think a lot about game theory, right? So if you're the first one to have a strategic reserve, you already have a certain benefit over the rest of the other ones. I think that's going to start triggering more countries more nation states to buy Bitcoin. However, on the US side of things, the US is the largest nation state holder of Bitcoin. And it's been like that for the last, I think, for like 5, 6 years. But the Bitcoin, it's actually confiscated. I mean, it's not really their Bitcoin, right? There's different ways you could look at it. They confiscated it's Bitcoin they have from confiscation. So is it really their Bitcoin? No. So that's one side of things. And also, for example, the US that has access to the money just starts buying up all the Bitcoin there is in the market. I mean, they'd have most of the Bitcoin, right? Other nations wouldn't have access to it, like So I mean, I think it's good that they have some Bitcoin, but imagine that they just start buying all the other Bitcoin, right? I think that's going to be something to watch out for.
Interesting. Yeah, will be. I think it will be fun to see where America is also moving with their Bitcoin. Are you actually you yourself living already on a Bitcoin standard, or how far in on a Bitcoin standard are you already living?
No, I'm not living on a Bitcoin standard. I would say, I mean, I stack BTC every day, and that's about it. But also, for example, I think Bitcoin standard also could include, for example, there's certain trends. For example, eating healthy. If I hadn't gone into Bitcoin, I wouldn't have gone into the rabbit hole of eating healthier foods like steak, protein, all that stuff, right? And also philosophically, I probably would be este uh, in like a worse place on what money is, and be more greedy. I don't know, working at a bank, something like that. But so I think like the Bitcoin standard, like using it every day for everything. I'm not there yet. I do buy Bitcoin, and at least that's for now the steps I could take.
Interesting, yeah. But you could spend Bitcoin already in a lot of places. So like you could be more on a Bitcoin standard, or you're already spending it as much as possible.
So I don't spend it. I just hold it. But for example, there's not many like here in El Salvador. If you go out and eat, you might not be 100% sure. Like the restaurant might not accept Bitcoin, for example. But there's still a lot of adoption to be done on that front. And yeah, the Bitcoin I just hold it, keep some money in my bank to pay cards, for example. Yeah.
It's still a little bit a while till we hit to where we can pay everything with Bitcoin, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a while, but I think that's why Lightning Network is so important. Right? The experience of paying via Lightning is above and beyond any other experience paying with any other method. Right? Paying with a bank, I've never enjoyed like having to send like a bank transfer to someone. It's always chaotic, takes time, and then they ask you to send them a little screenshot of the receipt and to their WhatsApp. But when you pay with Lightning, it's very seamless. Seamless. You scan, pay, payment gets to them immediately, and also it's final settlement payment, right? Whereas, for example, if you pay with a card, the merchant gets charged between 3 to 5%. The money takes 3 days to get to their bank account. So it's most of the payment infrastructure nowadays runs and operates on credit. So, for example, there's some cards, some POS providers nowadays that tell you when you process the card, you have it in your bank. Okay, but you're going to be paying 4 to 5%. That 4 to 5% includes like a credit that's being taken out for the dollar to be deposited in their account. Meanwhile, Visa takes 3 to 5 days to send the funds from Europe to the local Salvadorian bank, then they net the credit. So there's a lot of inefficiencies in the traditional system, and when more tools and wallets and fintechs start adopting Lightning, start offering cheaper fees, then I think we'll see more adoption.
True. It will be really interesting to see. Yeah, perfect. Then I have one question that I asked all of my guests. What can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Besides Bitcoin, I would say that El Salvador has a lot of opportunity. Since we started operating in El Salvador, este, and I've learned just too many things that I wouldn't have learned before. And like for the company at least, we developed a product that we exported to to first world countries. Wasn't any Lightning POS, good Lightning POS. We exported that abroad, right? And for me on the personal side, is um, I would say that things are possible if you put enough effort into them. It hasn't been very easy working at a Bitcoin company in El Salvador because we're kind of way ahead of the banking infrastructure. So sometimes it's hard to explain that to people, but I would say the same quote I said earlier, like it's very easy to overestimate what can happen in 3 years and underestimate what can happen. It's been 3 years since I started working in this, and besides working in Bitcoin, which I enjoy, I feel very, very happy. So that also.
Really cool. It will be interesting to see where we are long term in like 10, 15 years. That will be a great place in Bitcoin. It will be a great place in El Salvador, I guess, also. I'm already looking forward to come back next year to El Salvador and see the progress, what's happening in the country. Perfect. And yeah, thank you so much, Juan. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And your question from the previous guest is, what's your opinion on Bitcoin insurances?
Bitcoin insurances, that's like, okay. So actually, like Bitcoin in insurance or Bitcoin insurances for Bitcoin?
Bitcoin insurances. So insurances for your Bitcoin against a $5 Ranger tank, against they being stolen or they being lost or something like that.
Okay, so for example, the thing about insurance is that in order for them to calculate or absorb the risk, they need to know information. They need to be able to have information on how you're custodying it and everything like that. So, for example, you could get an insurance on your Bitcoin, but you'd have to give them a lot of information on that, right? And they would be very like if it's a big amount, the reinsurer would probably be looking at may even ask you like where do you live, what are your private keys, right? Stuff like that, because they need to be able to have it take put a risk score on it, stuff like that. So I think it's doable, but it depends on how much information you're willing to give away. If you have a ton of Bitcoin, you might not want to give that information away, but then you also have the risk of it getting stolen, right? But I think there's a lot of space for Bitcoin and insurance to grow. Maybe not only in insuring your Bitcoin, but using capital that's on Bitcoin as insurance capacity. So for example, that's oftentimes what people with a lot of cash do. They put it as capacity for an insurance product and get yield on it. So nowadays there's starting to be a lot of value in Bitcoin on an asset that's highly transportable, is highly liquid, and extremely secure, right? You can have self-custody of it. It doesn't have to be sitting in a bank account with all the money getting loaned out. So I think using Bitcoin or crypto in general to back insurance products can be something very interesting in the future.
Will be fun to see. But because the previous guest, obviously, he has developed the first ever Bitcoin insurance. So it was an interesting topic to think about that. And there are, I think, now 2 companies doing that. And it's a very new topic because insurance companies didn't want to touch Bitcoin for a very long time, and this just changed this year, basically. So it's an interesting and very new topic. But yeah, obviously, have your Bitcoin so secure that you don't need an insurance, I would say.
Yeah.
That's the best case. Perfect. And thank you so much, Juan, for being on the show. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter as Juan Di Sol, JuanDisol. You can follow me on there. Send me a text. Anything you want to talk about or coming to El Salvador, happy to help out with anything.
Thank you so much, Juan, for being on the show. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.